Okay, so I will give an opportunity for questions since it appears Mr. Previous asked already. What is that? All right, hold on, I gotta mute. Get control of the situation. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Sir, I guess I wanted to hear from you about continuous learning. You know, just continue. Oh, you know, always wanting to learn, always wanting to be better. Feel like learning is key. So, at your level, you know, how do you keep the appetite for learning going?
Because I'm so hungry. I have a very big appetite for learning. Not a problem. I am never bored. Interesting question. You ask, how do I keep the appetite? The appetite's not a problem. What happened when we had our break off with Shizu, it was the hunger was absolutely still there, even though I've trained 25 years with him and this style. And I have no interest in training other martial arts because there's so much to Bakwa. There's so much to this style. And other martial artists who train other styles, they don't get it. They like what they do, and that's fine. But I'm even interested in, I mean, I have a bookcase of Bakwa books even, you know, it's like all the perspectives of this art. And what I like about Lu Shietian's style also is he goes way back to the earlier 1900s, okay? The early 20th century when it was much closer to the origin. And he has a background of what he used to call a farmer style. So there's even people who train old martial arts and they don't call it Bakwa, but I see the same principles. I see the same kind of training. And so I've worked with people all over the world, just with partners and sparring and researching and just continuing to enhance what I know. And I can honestly say in the last 3-4 years, I feel my skills, my understanding, my love of the arts has even increased more. And even things that some of it's confirmation, some of it's finding a weakness in the art, in our style. A weakness meaning it could be like something's emphasized like this, and something else was in there, but it's emphasized like this. So it's kind of like specialties. And in the last class, Mr. Colburn was asking me about heavy power. Well, there are styles, I mentioned the Magwe style actually has a lot of the heavy power. It's like a ramming power, like a ram hitting something. So you really develop a lot of body structure behind your power, whether it be for health or for self-defense. And that body structure changes everything. And what's most interesting and why I like this particular teacher, not just his knowledge and understanding, it's also because we have a lineage and you know, people interested, not interested in that, but let's just say Lu Shietian's teacher, he bragged about his first teacher. That teacher had a son. That son learned from Magwe, which was one step back to the original who made it popular, Dong Hai-chun, okay? So there's a link there. There's a whole other side to Bagua-zhang, which is Cheng style, okay? Cheng Tinghua, spectacles Cheng. In fact, someone recently wrote that in their lessons of mindfulness. That was the martial artist they chose. And it's wonderful, the guy was amazing. But you'd be surprised, even within Bagua, there are specific lineages and perspectives, and I like to stick to the Yin Fu lineage. So Cheng Tinghua was probably the most famous with the most forms and beautiful stuff, amazing stuff. But I gravitate to the one branch And that branch, Yin-Fu, taught Magwe. Magwe also went to Dong Hai-Chuan directly. Magwe learned from 12 years old, so he only knew Bagua, where Yin-Fu did a lot of long fist, which is what we teach the children in our school. Our youth program learns long fist. And that's why this Bagua was developed from older martial arts, okay? But Lu Shetian, the teacher he said was the best teacher he worked with, his son, went to Magwe. So he learned both. And what he said, which is why I'm bringing it up, what he said about the Yin-Fu lineage versus the Magwe lineage had everything to do with that structure, which is exactly what I experienced when I started working more on that art. So it doesn't take away, it doesn't make one better or worse. It actually enhances and sort of completes it. In my experience, this is my version of it, which is everybody has that. 8 main teachers from the original Dong Hai-Chuan, 8 most famous teachers, and they all had branches, lineages that passed down all over the world. And each had a background in a martial art. Some was wrestling, some was long fist, some was, some Xingyi Chuan, for example. Different backgrounds, different interests, different perspectives. So their branch is like that. And each one presented to the world, they taught the next generation according to their understanding. And that's all I can do, is teach according to my understanding. And the things I discovered, shortcomings or weaknesses within my own body, very quickly were filled in because of just an emphasis. It was more emphasized towards speed and whipping, where this is more emphasized towards structure. And you put that together, you start to get closer to what would be the original, which is what I was also discussing in the last class. Like Bagua Chang's supposed to be like a storm coming in. It can be like a tsunami, it can be like a tornado. Like the tornadoes down south, the way they just wiped out a town like that. It came through and just tore up homes and buildings like in minutes. Or a tsunami, everybody's at the beach and all of a sudden there's this wave that just takes out everything. Everybody drowns or they're running for their lives, right? It's supposed to come in like this big storm, meaning it's supposed to be your whole body and mind as one. Now take that beyond self-defense. This is what we mean when we talk about the real goal of martial arts at the highest level is oneness, is realizing who and what you really are. That's why no matter how bad, you have this deep understanding of who and what you are, and you know everything's going to be okay. Yeah, there can be physical suffering. There can be worry and concern. But how do you overcome that? If you're practicing properly, you should develop this inner structure, a spiritual level, oneness and completeness within yourself. So even though we're in this physical world and we're going through this incredible challenge, it's really unprecedented. How do you keep it together? And that's the thing. That's the one I mentioned earlier, that there was a student had left a question. He's not here today. Maybe he watches this recording. But what I wanted to talk about was, and that question kind of leads me to that, because there's the physical art where you're training to be able to be, like you use hit with the palm, but it's your whole body in the palm. It's not just the hand hitting by itself. Your hand, your body, your step is all together. Your complete focus all together. That training is body-mind training. They have to come together as one. So that question was about, Shifu, what do you do about anxiety? What do you do about anxiety? If you don't think I'm feeling anxiety in this world of what's going on, you're fooling yourself, okay? The difference is knowing what to do. Like, for example, today, I wasn't feeling good at all. Mentally, emotionally, I wasn't good at all. So what do you think I did? I go out and walk the circle. You go out and walk the circle because the mind and the body mind as one, you bring it back together. Because what's happening when you have anxiety? You're thinking. You're thinking. We put ourselves in this position by where, the grief of the past or the worry about the future. And what your practice should do, just like the hand, body, step, striking all together as one, attack and defense all as one. Bhagwa is to make all as one, and this concept of oneness is all as one. Okay. The body, mind as one. It can only be in the moment now. Because if your mind is in the future, you are not in the future. This is your imagination, and you're creating the stress within yourself by how you're thinking. If you're in the past, you're not in the past, so you're not as one. The only time you can be as one is in the moment. And when you practice properly, that's what happens. The body and the mind as one. You use the body as the focal point to create this meditative mind. The most powerful practice in Bhagwa. We always say the most important thing is meditation. Well, what do you think circle walking is? But just like, so I like to say Bhagwa is like a puzzle, and that question again was, how do I stay motivated? How do I stay with the appetite? The puzzle's not complete. It never feels complete. All the pieces of the puzzle. Okay? The beginner learns what? You learn how to warm up the body from different angles. Okay? That's one little part. Loosen up the body. But let's think about the different drills. You have a palm striking, both for martial purposes and in Qigong. Single palm, double palm. You have the Fanjang exercise, right? Changing from one to the other, right? But you're standing still in the beginning. So your hand and your body, your defense is standing still. Basic Qi exercise. Introduction to Qigong. As is Fanjang. The movement, the breathing, and the concentration. Trying to make that one. If you practice regularly, that will become more and more integrated. The movement, the breath, and the concentration as one. With a simple exercise like the basic Qi exercise or the Fanjang exercise. Stationary, meaning your feet aren't moving. Then you have 7 stances, right? Different shapes to hold the body, find your center, find your structure, develop some muscle endurance, some strength, balance. Eventually you get into footwork, and then they train footwork with no hands, just the feet, moving the feet, jump step, pivot step, all these different steps. You got circle. You sit, you learn breathing exercises. You sit, you learn meditation. These are all pieces of the puzzle. One of the stories that I learned from my teacher was that it's like you're given a rough jewel, and it has to be polished. So each one of these components, you have to make it perfect, okay? And then you find another one, and then you got to polish that one, make it right. And you get a chain, and you put the good one on the chain, and then you make a new one. You put that on the chain, you get a new one, you put that on the chain. Each one has to be polished and perfected before it's put on the chain to make a beautiful necklace. Anything that you don't take the time to polish and make perfect looks ugly on the jewelry and the necklace. It's the same in our practice. Any component that you don't spend the time perfecting will always make something wrong with your practice, something wrong with your progress, something wrong with your ability to apply that, whether it's for self-defense or for health. You'll be missing something. Think about it. What is the most important thing to connect the mind and the body? Is breathing. How many sit and practice the breathing, to master the breathing? You know, this thing people were dealing with was attacking the lungs. But if your lungs are well developed, you should have a much better defense against anything. This is natural. Our lungs have 5 lobes, okay? Most people only breathe in the top. If you saw a picture of the inside of the lungs, it looks like grapes. Okay, it looks like grapes, and that's because it's all the surface area. If it's all bunched up, is a limited surface area, and that's what happens to the bottom of the lungs if it's not used much. But if those grapes are able to hang down, it opens up all that surface area. It can increase your vital capacity by 5-6 times. So if your breathing naturally uses more of the lungs without having to think about it, meaning you've practiced enough that you don't have to think about it, you don't have to remember to breathe that way, you automatically use your whole lungs instead of the average person. And pay attention. Around you, people you know, usually elderly, they breathe like this. Usually, a lot of times, open mouth, and the chest is doing this. And it's short, very shallow. The bottom of the lungs is dying. That was another brilliant thing that my teacher said. He said, wherever circulation doesn't reach, bacteria and viruses have a party. My nutrition mentor said the same thing in a whole other way. He says, the viruses and bacteria and parasites are actually either created within the body or come into the body and have a place to live and grow because the food is there for them to feed on. And if it's not, they go away, they die off. You think about it. This is very hard to argue with natural principles. You find a dead deer on the side of the road, you don't know anything. You walk over, you'll see maggots. You don't know anything. You think the maggots killed the deer. But the maggots are nature's way to clean that deer, and they will clean it right down to the bone. Completely, beautifully cleaned. And I've seen it at all stages because I spent a good amount of time in the woods. I even had my son when he was very little. We came across one that must have been hit and came into the woods and died. And you could see how the maggots were still feeding, but it was almost all cleaned away. Amazing. So it doesn't just putrefy into the environment. They began using leeches again. You have a wound, you're going to have all this dead tissue. You put the leech will feed on the dead tissue, and it will stop when it's all fresh. Think about that. Bacteria, viruses, parasites feed on damaged tissue. When there's a problem in the body, these things can come. And you can stop it with a medication, but you don't make the body healthier. You have all this dead tissue. You have all these dead cells. And it's going to cause problems depending where it is. It could be your shoulder. It could be your heart, your liver, your bladder. Who knows? Wherever problems come. Poor circulation makes more problems. Even tumors grow because there's poisons and the body just like surrounds it and tries to protect itself from there. And it's not able to get rid of it another way. So it just encases it. And depending how caustic it is. More harm, less harm. So ultimately, if you're breathing properly, not only do you enhance your vital capacity, not only do you better oxygenate your body, which will increase circulation everywhere, because in order to oxygenate, you have to be relaxed. Well, the proper breathing can relax you, calms the mind. Because you're not relaxed when you're thinking like that. So breathing is the bridge from the body and the mind. Calms and relaxes the body, calms the mind, both. So you sit, you develop your breathing. Make a habit how to use your body properly. You get more energy, you feel more energy. You also meditate, your mind calms down through practicing, calming down. One-pointed focus instead of 100 things. One-pointed focus. So each of these things are mastered. Each component is mastered, like making the necklace. Each of these components is mastered. You automatically have a better immune system. You automatically have better energy. You automatically have better focus. You automatically feel more positive. You automatically know when bad things happen, how to get back there, because you're more used to that. But if you're used to always being in this fight or flight, anxious mind, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's like trying to defend the country with a poorly trained military. You know, let's just grab up all the people who want to fight and send them out into war. No, they have to be very well trained or they will just die. Within us is the same. The body has to be very well trained in order to deal with all the emotional challenges, virus challenges, whatever it is we face. And our ability to think through things even. That's why people say sleep on it. You sleep on it, you can get clarity because you stop thinking so much. You get out of your own way, you calm down, you become more creative, more intuitive to make a better decision as well. And so if someone asks, how do I keep an appetite to learn? And then someone else asks, how do you deal with anxiety? It's all connected. This practice takes care of all that stuff. And when you're in this loop of worry, it can be very hard to get out of it. You think you're going to figure it out by thinking, when what you really need to do is sleep on it or train on it. Meaning just go train and change your mind. And suddenly things seem okay. And you'll have a better grip on what to do. Because that's another answer to the anxiety. What can you do? Worry doesn't fix anything. What can you do? What can you do to find the solution? You can focus on the problem or you can focus on getting a solution. That's why the calmer state of mind, less emotional, a clearer solution can and will come. Which brings me back to the circle. If you regularly walk the circle, it's going to bring together all of those components. The calm breathing, the one-pointed focus, the body being a focal point, depending on what level of mastery you're at for yourself, because you have to walk properly. So there's basic walking, just walking smoothly, trying to be light, trying to be smooth, and then there's circle walking that develops your structure better and better and better. And then when you do that, it's like sometimes it's all you need. Now that's not taking away from the principle of better exercise comes from more parts of the body moving. It's true. All of the body has to move to have good health, good circulation everywhere. Chi and blood has to reach everywhere, right? But when you have a more meditative mind, you'll be more relaxed. Here he is. You'll be more relaxed when you have a more meditative mind. And if you have a more meditative mind, you're going to have better circulation. Also, when the body develops the perfect structure, that enhances the relaxation, because it's no different than leaning one way or another, or so many times in class we try to work our posture, right? Head is tall, but the heart and lungs is dropped, and the dantian is full, the lower back should be relaxed. All of this has to come from the same training. All of this comes from the same training. The body settles, the perfect posture, you're going to have more circulation. You're literally taking the kinks out of the hose or blockages to your chi and blood flow. So circle walking does that. The breath, the mind, the body, all developing. And what happens is your dantian develops. And I guess the best way to describe that is, if you have an 8-ounce cup, but you want to drink 16 ounces of liquid, it doesn't work. You have to go twice, right? The idea is, if you want to be able to handle more, you need to make a bigger cup. This is like one person can lift 50 pounds, very, very difficult. Another person can lift 500 pounds. Who's got the bigger cup when it comes to strength? That 50 pounds for the person who can lift 500 pounds is like you and me lifting a bottle of water, right? It's like nothing to it. But to the person that 50 pounds is heavy, well, they're not going to be able to lift 75 or 100 without probably hurting themselves. It's more than they can handle. Life is exactly like that. It could be physical challenge, it could be an emotional challenge. If it's more than you can handle, your cup is too small to handle what you're asking. So how do you make the cup bigger? This is the dantian. So there's a saying, when the dantian is full, all the 12 channels of the body are full. And a good indication of this is when you have cold hands and feet. Anybody here have cold hands and feet? Yeah, I've walked around in class during practice and felt hands just out of curiosity, and like half of people have cold hands, even with practice. That's not good. That means you're holding, it's like a major dam in the body. You're blocking that flow, and you don't even know it. That can be unconscious tension, right? It could be unconscious thought. Unconscious thought means you're not aware of that thought. This is a life of programming that's running inside that you're not even aware of. Meditation can bring that out. And people have had breakdowns learning meditation. Yeah. When students get more serious, I start getting those kind of questions. You can get separated from reality is another one. Okay, so there's some things you have to be aware of with meditation. 5-minute meditation, 10-minute meditation, you won't have these experiences. But advanced people going more than an hour and a half, yeah, you have more profound experiences. You'll have more experiences, possibly reaching even the delta level. We talked about the brainwaves, right? The delta level is when you start to experience oneness, like there is no you. You don't exist anymore. You are one with all that is. It's like the biggest, slowest waves and the brain waves in the body. Someone who walks the circle like that is the same idea. And one of the big differences is, so meditation is, it can train a depth of mind. The depth of mind, because you're not moving. It could be a stump in the woods, right? But life is moving. Life is, doing things, right? And we have the body. Can you walk the circle enough to experience that profound level of meditation? Yes, you can. But it takes time. You have to really walk a while. And when I say it takes time, and going back to that first question with the appetite. So I'm doing a good job if the information I provide, if the seeds I plant create that appetite to want to experience more. What do I mean by that? You walk out your home. Most people have a street going left and right. And you could look one way and you can look the other way and you can see what's there. But if you never went down to the corner and turned and looked, you don't know what's there. In other words, you meditate 5 minutes, you meditate 10 minutes, you don't know what happens at 20 or 30 minutes. If you stop at 45 minutes, you don't know what it's like to go over an hour. What's different? This is the same with circle walking. This is why we have an advanced test a week from Saturday. And the more advanced have to walk longer, just like they have to meditate longer, because they also have a sitting meditation test. But you can't cram. Like when I was in school, probably most people, it's like you cram overnight, memorize something, pass a test in school. If they gave me the same test the next day, I'd probably fail because you can't remember anything because I just crammed it in there, right? That's not learning. But I never could do that with this. It doesn't work. This is literally a progression. You change. That's Bhagavad means. Bhagavad means change. It changes you. Body-mind training, that changes you. It changes your life. It changes how you see the whole world. So that's why you have to walk. You have to get the experience of an hour. You have to get the experience even beyond an hour. That's the funniest thing with my teachers. Like every time it's like, okay, I did that. And then it's like, okay, now do, if it was do this 5, it's like, okay, now do it 10. If I walked an hour, it's okay, now try an hour 15. Yes, sir. It never ends. And it was always true. It was always worth it. There was a different experience at the next level. But you can't go out as a beginner and walk an hour and a half. You can't do that. But if you're consistent over time, when you get there, you'll be ready for it. And rather than it being a physical breakdown or a mental breakdown, it can be a profound experience that you want to do it again. There is nothing better than those experiences. There is nothing better. When you have that experience, it changes you. It changes your world, and you want more of that. It can become a lot like a drug. It enhances life. It makes life more vibrant. And you can have that in meditation, but I'm saying you can get your circle walking like that as well. And then another thing about the circle walking posture, the right structure keeps the body, okay, let's imagine this. The body ages and the joints get smaller. It's like you shrink, right? they measure with the x-rays, they see the space between the joints shrinks, so you lose height. Bagua can take the body and pull it back apart, which means helps you stay younger. Imagine that. So there's sayings in the ancient poems about for every inch you can, in density and length of the tendons, it adds 10 years to your life. Now I'm a believer in, it's almost like you have a spiritual expiration date on your birth certificate. So I'm a big believer not in length of life, but length of quality of life. Because how many people are in a nursing home and they can't even take care of themselves? That's not living, right? I mean, not for anything, but look what this virus did to those places. They had no defense. No defense. That was the worst place. And it's the worst place to be because you're completely against natural order. You don't get enough exercise, you don't get enough sun, you probably don't get the right food in most of these nursing homes. You know, it's just the way it is. It's like hospital food. It's not very life-forming and nutritious. So too many rules broken, the body just gets worse and worse. So you're still alive, breathing, but are you really living? So I think that's a good goal. And that's also what would keep the appetite. Because interesting, again, with that question, with the appetite. After I trained for, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, something like that, my father said to me, didn't you learn enough yet? Didn't you learn everything yet? It was like questions like that. And I never could have a conversation with him because he had no comprehension of what I was doing. Because words only go so far. The appetite never ends if the reward is there. So how about that goal for everyone? A better quality of life, no matter how old. A better quality of life, no matter how old. I think that's a pretty good goal. How about a better spiritual life, no matter your method, no matter your belief system? You attain your own direct connect, which would enhance whatever religion you believe in, or none at all. Could take an atheist and have them switch to, yeah, there's something, because the experience proves it to them. Because a real excuse me, a real, true spiritual experience is a knowing. When you know, it doesn't matter what the books say. Or you can have a clearer perspective or understanding of what the ancient books meant. Who were these people that wrote these books that lasted thousands of years? What did they know? What were they trying to tell us? See, that's why the appetite never ceases. Always hungry. Which is another perspective of a martial artist. Never perfect, but always striving for perfection. Always striving for perfection, but knowing you'll never be perfect. Always trying to improve. And you know the reality of life. You know, you watch any sport. Bagua Chan's not like the sports where they're 30 years old and they're old already. If they can improve, they can improve, because they can improve, and then automatically they plateau and start coming down, right? Bhagavad, you can continue to improve, but you are fighting Father Time still. So you have to respect Father Time. But you're not going to do this. You're going to slow down and maybe go this way down. Right? You slow the degeneration. You know, you become more like, what was it, Jack LaLanne pulling trains in his 90s? Some people just, they keep a certain amount of youth, no matter how old. That's a powerful life, in my opinion. Let's go to meditation. Sit comfortably. Align yourself as if to hold up the sky. Then settle. Relax while maintaining the alignment. Decide on a focal point. And gaze to the point between the eyebrow while watching the breath. Or any focal point of your choosing. But stay with one. If the mind wanders, come back to your focal point. Wanders again, simply bring it back. Keep a passive attitude. No judgment about how you're doing. Simply practice. You have no place to go. No one calling for you. No one to answer to. All there is here and now.